Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello, I'm Colonie Town Judge Peter Crummey, and welcome to Benchmark. We'll explore a variety of issues involving our justice system, our legal system, and how they relate to the citizens of the town of Colonie. Today, we are truly fortunate to have with us as a guest an icon in the legal profession here in the county of Albany. Saul Greenberg served as our Albany County District Attorney for 26 years. Included in his service also as well throughout his professional career, served as an attorney in a variety of capacities, but of course we're all well aware of the service that he's done on behalf of the citizens of the County of Albany, and we're so fortunate to have him here today. We also recognize, of course, that the parameters of the show prevent us from actually truly understanding and exploring the full professional career of this legal icon here in the County of Albany. And join me in welcoming Saul Greenberg today. And thank you for joining us, Saul.
Thank you, Judge. It's my honor.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here, and I know that the citizens of the town who are watching us today are so happy too. You've touched the lives of so many people in this community in a variety of different ways, and you helped shape the criminal justice system here in Albany County as the district attorney. But before you became district attorney in 1975, you served as a private practitioner for a number of years subsequent to your graduation from Albany Law School in 1948. And in the early days, you practiced in a variety of private settings, and then ultimately was chosen as a candidate and as the district attorney by the citizens of Albany County. It's such a full career for all of us to consider.
Well, I enjoyed it. I had 26 years in the private sector before I became DA, and then I had 26 years as DA, and I've been out 10 years now, and I worked for 8 years as a state police forensic lab in the cold case section. So I've enjoyed it tremendously, and I guess you suddenly reach an age we're not supposed to work anymore.
Well, you've never been able to get to that point, that's for sure. We're all lucky that you continue to provide your background and experience for all others who follow. Your insight on the criminal justice system and the landmark cases that you were involved in as the head prosecutor here for the County of Albany for years remain significant landmark cases throughout the law of the state of New York. And in fact, one case in particular, People v. George Wesley, actually a 1988 or 89 case, became a precedent not only for the state of New York, but over the course of the entire United States of America. And that involves the first use of DNA evidence, is that correct?
That's right. In the evidence and presenting evidence, DNA evidence, something new. It was in existence for some years before the time we used it, but it was never used as criminal evidence. The two scientists who developed it and got Nobel prizes for it, one was an American scientist in the Cold Harbor Laboratory in LA, or rather in Long Island. The other was a British scientist. They got it in 1974, but then was ultimately used in this first case, Wesley. And as a result of that trial, the defendant is still in jail. I'm out of there in 10 years. I'm out 10 years. He's still in jail. As a matter of fact, you said about my long career, and said and so forth. Believe me, a lot of the defendants we convicted, particularly in murder, are still in jail. I'm out 10 years. A lot of them will be there the rest of their lives.
Well, the DNA case, being a first of its kind in the country, brought national attention to the Albany County Courthouse and to that particular case. And at that particular time, I believe that the presiding judge at the county level was Judge Harris. Is that correct?
That's right.
And at one point, years prior, you were practiced law together in a different capacity, didn't you? As private practitioner.
Some years before.
Right.
But being a former partner didn't mean anything in Judge Harris's court.
Exactly. And on this particular issue of applying the new science to criminal prosecution, it was Joe Harris who presided over that particular matter. And you told me before we got started today that actually he was brilliant in his analysis of the issues that were first, case of first impression in the entire country, and he best understood how to manage this new evidence and to be able to give it the weight that it deserves in the courtroom.
Well, it was a 50-page memorandum decision, 3 pages of glossary of terms. And he was sharp. He was just sharp. And we were lucky to have had him then, and particularly in this case. As a matter of fact, one of the defendant's experts in the case we presented was Barry Scheck, who was probably the greatest authority on DNA evidence. He was in the O.J. Simpson case as an expert in that.
And he continues to assist others in the application of DNA even today, doesn't he?
Yeah, any prisoners awaiting death, and you know they're going to write and write and write. Those he selects. He has the Innocence Program, that's what it's called. And about 150 prisoners have been released as a result of it. They were the wrong persons.
Well, the DNA evidence established through your use of it in a prosecution has actually been utilized to also be able to establish the innocence as well of a variety of defendants in the criminal justice system.
I'll tell you what other system it takes care of, where you have a birth, and people aren't married, and they have a birth, and they deny being the father.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can check DNA,
right,
which is different from what it was before that. Before that, it was a blood test where they said, they didn't say he was the father, but he could be considered as the father.
Right. And it would shift
the blood type,
the paternity cases.
It was a paternity case out
Right.
of family court, particularly.
That's right.
DNA today is the absolute evidence.
So some of the cases that you prosecuted included cases that still come up today in the news media. I noticed a few years ago there was a reference, not that long ago, to the Grotto Case that involved the fire in Cohoes in the 70s when you were serving as district attorney then. What was that case about? And it had a lot of local interest as well.
The Grotto Case, a case emanating from an arson, what we considered a fire in a home where her husband and 7 kids perished in the fire. She was taken to a local hospital because she had some maybe smoke inhalation or something like that. And actually, she was released and went back to the site looking for her purse, her pocketbook. Had no concern about the family. And incidentally, within a couple of months after that, she answered an ad and married an apple farmer out in the state of Washington. So, you know, she was a suspect. And very recently, The local detectives have gone out to that area, and also the some federal agents, and it's still at the point where she hasn't been charged, but she's the principal suspect this time. Now, what happened with that case was my chief assistant then,
Dan Dwyer.
Dan Dwyer, who was probably the most experienced trial prosecutor in the upstate area, excellent lawyer, did his homework. He never took a case where he wouldn't do his homework. And most times he got convictions. In this case, he, instead of having his name on his desk, one of these movable names,
nameplate or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, you know, Saul Greenberg, DA, or whatever.
Right.
Dan Dwyer, Chief Assistant DA. He had a plaque that read, Dan, comma, remember the grottos.
Well, that only underscores the type of man he was.
No question about it. And further, every year at the anniversary of this fire, he would go to the cemetery where that whole family was buried just to pay respects.
Well,
until he died.
He was a very special man. And of course, he lived in the town of Colonie, I believe, right along the Schuyler Road.
That's right.
As I recall. Yeah,
great guy, great guy. There's another case, I think, you know, we had the case involving a couple, older couple, Jacob and Dora Cohn, who lived in West Albany, which was part of the town of Colonie.
That's correct.
Well, the mother, Dora, was talking to her daughter, who was a Mrs. Mariani. She was trying to explain that the father has been killed, and as she was talking to the daughter, she was killed. So let me tell you this. I've always had a high respect for the Colonie Police Department, an excellent police department. They're the second largest in the county, Albany being the largest, and that's respected. Despite the fact, the bigger they are, you're gonna have more trouble. Look at Schenectady, the police department. You're gonna have more trouble. But Colonie Police Department, excellent police department. We had a good relationship with them. It was a pleasure to deal with them, frankly. And ultimately, an investigation went on, and they discovered the leader of the 3 defendants who broke into the house to steal. One of them, and the leader, was a grandson, Mariani, the son of Mrs. Mariani. And once that was discovered, she was no longer cooperative with us, and understandably, it was her son. He has spent time in jail in Schenectady County and met these 2 guys, and they were friends. And apparently spilled the word out that his grandparents had a lot of money, a lot of bonds and so forth. Let's go over there. Well, they were ultimately found, they were all convicted. I think he ultimately got 40 years to life. And the others got long terms too. So he's one whom I can say is still in jail. Then we had the Lemuel Smith case. That's a celebrated case in Albany County. It happened in Albany, not in the town of Colonie. But
that's right.
But you know, the first year I came into office, we had 28 homicides in the county. Unheard of. I said, what am I getting into?
Right.
Well, we ultimately, after that, we seem to have leveled out at between 12 and 14 a year, all over the county. A lot of them in Albany City, but some in Colonie and other areas, throughout the county. So in any event, you can go on. We had a case involving another celebrated case here would be the case involving Ted Pepper.
That's right.
Pepper ran a very profitable automobile dealership on Route 9.
Route 9 across from Hoffman's.
Across from Hoffman's.
Right.
And a very competent automobile dealer. But he had a weakness for young girls. And he was ultimately convicted on, even not only the first time when he pled out, the second time, that plea the first time was reversed, and the case was sent back. There were 7 or 8 counts, and we retried him, and he was convicted, and got, I think, 6 2/3 to 14 years for that. Okay. And there are loads of cases that, of course, I no longer have access to the file. I could,
right. I understand,
because I'm friendly with the present DA.
Sure.
I have no problem. I can do that.
Sure.
He honored me by naming their. Of course, they moved into a new building, and
that's right.
Their conference room is called the Greenberg room.
Well, hopefully,
very nice.
That room will continue to provide wisdom for all those who assemble in it. That's for sure. One of the, it seems to me, and it's of interest to the viewers, of course, too, that we recognize that in Albany County, we're also the seat of state government.
Right.
And and certainly the jurisdiction of the district attorney's office can extend into the Capitol if deemed fit. Did you ever have opportunity to work on issues that involved the Capitol or the legislature in any way?
Yes, we had certain cases involving not the legislature, as a separate set of government, but
all right.
Yes, we had cases involving. I had a good working arrangement, like with the Speaker of the House or the minority head, and the Senate also,
right.
basically. And
right.
we get called. We look at it. I remember we had several cases. I remember getting called by Attorney General Lefkowitz, leaving his New York home on the days coming up on Monday.
Right.
Tell me that when he gets up, he wants to see me. I'm fine.
Okay.
And of course, when he got up, his secretary would call, and I go up to see him out of respect. I
sure.
mean,
right.
This guy was an icon, as an attorney general. He's quite a guy, and involving probably a member of his staff.
All right.
We look at it, we work at it, and I had to make sure that it had to be viable, because I was concerned about a lawyer losing his license. In other words, can you work in another way? Can you work in another way?
Right.
Now the present DA works differently. Each does his own. You have the jurisdiction, and if you want to, you can do it. Mm-hmm. That's why the DA of Albany County is in a very formidable position.
Yes, that's true.
In a sense.
Of course.
And you can hurt people too, But I enjoyed every minute of it, really.
Well, the citizens did too, of course, electing you and re-electing you 7 times.
Well, I was co-endorsed by the Republicans 4 times.
4 of the 7.
Yeah.
Right.
As a matter of fact, in my 6th term, 6th election, a case where the Republicans weren't going to run anybody. So some young kid who inherited millions from his father, Tom Marcel, decided he's going to run. He's going to pay for it all, so he spent a lot of money. We figured the number of votes that ultimately ended up as to how much each vote was worth.
Right.
You know, in that sense. But then my seventh term, I got endorsed, and Bill Powers is a good friend of mine, and then you had your local Harry D'Agostino here in Colonie, a good supporter.
Well,
As a matter of fact, you were a good supporter of mine. You weren't in office necessarily at the time.
I was in the county legislature.
Yeah, right.
That's right. I was a county legislator for 8 years.
Okay.
And we worked together on developing the departments throughout the county. Absolutely.
Sure, I knew your father-in-law before you did.
Well, and of course, it brings me to an interesting issue, too, because our families worked together on fine clothing back 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 80 years ago.
No question about it. My father was a men's hatter, one of the few men's hatters.
That's right.
On, you know, on either Panama hats during the summer or straw hats or felt hats in the winter, and he worked with Walsh and Sons.
That's right. My dad, who's now 90, who certainly worked there throughout his lifetime, has told me, and you and I have spoken about it, that they had a relationship where the issues involving hats would be sent for your dad's professional view.
Yeah, no, he was.
That's right.
He was a honest hat man, not a shoemaker who took hats in.
All right. Well, that's right.
You know, and yeah, right. But, well, your father and I are the same age.
That's right.
So basically, we're lucky to be alive.
Well, we're lucky, of course, too, and so is the legal system here in the county of Albany as well, in so many ways. You know, one of the things I've seen as now in my 12th year as town judge, so much of the criminal calendar is addiction related. Did you see in your prosecution of matters over 25, 26 years that drug addiction seemed to fuel much of the crime you prosecuted?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, particularly in murder cases, you'll find the victim of a murder case probably owes them money, and they're going to take care of it the right way, you know. But I have found, looking at the criminal field and the legal aspect to it among lawyers, when I came out of law school, you got paid hardly enough to eat. And the bigger the firm, the lesser you got. At the end of 8 years out of a big firm, I was earning $80 a week. I had a wife and 2 kids, okay?
Right.
Now, what I find now with respect to the legal field is I raise serious questions about the advertising that lawyers do. When I got out of law school, you never advertised that way. And today, even your established law firms don't advertise, really. A lot of the younger firms do.
All right.
Okay, but that's their business. Some of the advertising is fair. Other, in my opinion, it's a glutton. You're looking to get business.
Right.
And that's the name of the game. I never saw you advertising as a lawyer.
No, never have.
When did you become judge?
I started on January 1st, 2000.
Okay. 2000 was the year that my last year. Right, I remember you became judge.
That's right. I remember you coming out in December 1999 on Judge Greisler's last night as a judge, and I would be picking up, and I succeeded Judge Greisler in service on January 1st. But late December 99, on his last court appearance in our what we call the smaller courtroom, you were in the courtroom to say goodbye and thank Judge Greisler for all of his efforts on behalf of the
Well,
justice
plus
system.
the fact that later we went to the Italian restaurant
Yeah.
on Route 5, run by a former Colonie cop. We had him, a lot of members of the court.
Sure.
Yeah, we did. I picked up the bill.
Yeah. Well, I like that. I bet the judge was happy, and I was lucky to be able to succeed him. I enjoyed being a young prosecutor.
He was a good man.
And in practicing in front of him in the 80s and 90s, understanding how he carried himself in the courtroom. And
Excellent.
we were just together last week. He came to the Justice Department for a visit, and I told him that many of the techniques in operating a courtroom, I was able to take some of his actions and implement them myself.
Well, I've noticed just by reading the paper that you have an interest in school kids, basically, and you appear regularly.
Well, I do, and it's probably because I have 5 of my own, and so I continue to be involved in their own schools. And just last week, I was with Joe Harris's son, Seth Harris, down at the Albany County Courthouse in the old Appellate Division courtroom, presiding over a mock trial with 7th graders from Shaker Junior High School, 4.5 hours, pre-trial motions, jury trial, and ultimate conviction on one of the 2 counts prosecuted. 4.5 hours straight.
Well, his father had that same interest, and his father was the one who worked a trial system for high school kids. Then it went on to something higher in the state. The winning school would go there.
That's right.
His father did it. And in the beginning, he had a tough time convincing some of the schools that they said noses out to, but ultimately it became a very important part of his operation.
Well, I can tell you, it's always my pleasure to be able to share what little I can with the students in the variety of schools that ask me to participate. I am very impressed with the 7th grade performance from the junior high school last week. It lets me know that our legal system is in good hands as it moves into the next generations.
Well, when I was first became DA, we set up with the Boy Scouts a system where we had students from any school wanted to belong to this particular group. Mm-hmm. And I had kids, some of the kids were great. Matter of fact, one of them was a gal, and I had assigned a certain subject. She came up with a brief that was better than most lawyers could create. Then, of course, as you go on, you're getting new groups, and ultimately you're a lawyer, prosecutor, and I was in a long time. Ultimately, I met her at a restaurant in Troy with her husband. And always great to see her and so forth. Oh yeah, practicing law out of Clifton Park. And I just saw her recently. Fantastic lawyer, you know. And I'll tell you, the new federal judge was a neighbor of mine, May D'Agostino. And she's going to be a great judge. Sure,
we're certainly fortunate there
she's
as
a
well.
great lawyer.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, we've had, you know, politically, you get some of our politics, like take Ned Conway. He was the Republican leader of the county at one time.
Albany County Chair.
He turned out to be a great judge.
Absolutely.
Judge Staley was a great judge.
That's right, from Colonie.
Judge Hunt out of Albany was a great judge. They turned out to be good judges. You know, we've had good judges here, basically.
Well, it's
And the system is there, and you can use it any way you want to. And I think, in my experience as a prosecutor, realizing the importance of life, and you know, what are you going to charge the person with? Or they've been arrested for something. Is it that bad? They have a clean record. Give them a section shot. That's what you have to consider.
Well, you certainly applied your wisdom and your view of common sense issues in considering the humanity that's always involved in any particular case.
Well, my basis for that is Maimonides of the Old Testament. He was a great believer in human rights, basically.
Well, we know that you live it every day. And Saul Greenberg, we're so lucky that you came out here today to meet with the citizens again in the town of Colonie. Your impact on the legal system and the criminal justice system here in the county of Albany is indelible and forever. And we're certainly fortunate to have you come here today and just briefly touch on some of the issues. We all recognize that 30 minutes does not do justice to the life profession of Saul Greenberg.
Except, well, thank you for those nice words, but a little exaggerated. But
I don't think so.
I would say that you have spent these 12 years doing what a lot of judges don't do, and that is you have the interest of school kids, and you have the interest of letting the public know what it's all about, what can do. You know, I had serious situations in 26 years where certain things had to be done, and you hated like heck to do it. But the nature of the crime was such, you had no other choice. Like DWI, it's still a problem today. And the death caused by DWI accidents. And I worked for these organizations, basically. And, you know, to this day, I think during the course of the time I was in office, we had something like maybe 1,300 DWI cases throughout the county. No matter what you're trying to do to prevent it, and passing the word on, and this cooperation among all the police departments and the sheriff's office, so forth. And yet, you still get killings on the highway. And, you know, you read in the paper, you see all these things. I'm no longer involved in the details of them, but you see them, and hey, the beat goes on, unfortunately. You're trying to avoid it, but it's going to be here, unfortunately. And some people don't know how to clear up, you know. In any event, I loved every minute of my 26 years as DA. I know there are a lot sitting in jail yet. We had some good judges here in the county. The county level, boy, we had good judges. I mean, you had Judge Keegan.
Right.
You had, when he came up from city court, police court, he was tough. Of course, there's certain things he wouldn't say in county court that he'd say in police court, and I make sure you bring your toothbrushes next time you come in, or things like that. But Judge Harris, Judge Klein, boy, when we had Klein and Harris together, woo, they were great. Klein, he could dictate a memorandum or something, and right to the point, knew all the authorities for it. There was secretary and just dictated. He'd wait for the thing to be brought out and he'd sign it. Harris, brilliant writer, brilliant legal writer. As a partner with him, he was unbelievable.
Well, their impact on the justice system, and of course yours as well, will continue on, and we're so happy that you're with us today. And of course, my best to Mrs. Greenberg as well.
And same to your wife, whom I know.
That's right. Yeah.
I knew her father when I was working as a counsel to Woodcraft Construction Corporation.
Sure. Well,
and he had stuff that Woodcraft would like to buy.
well, thank you so much for coming out to the Sanford Library today and joining us. Saul Greenberg, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
I'm Judge Peter Crummey, and thank you for joining me on Benchmark.